let's talk about Tom Allen and these comments about NIL. So at his radio show on Thursday, and this happened after I recorded Thursday's episode, so I could not mention them for that episode. At his radio show, though, he talked about NIL. It was a question he was kind of asked because for those that did not see, there was an anonymous donor who basically pledged to match all donations up to $1 million from now until the end of the year. And the Indy Star reported that this is more, while it's basically to the whole program, the money's going to go toward football and it's going to benefit football. So Tom Allen was asked about that. And I want to give a shout out to Mason Williams with Indiana Rivals who grabbed this video. It's a long video. It's about 8 minutes long. But here's the kind of Cliff Notes version of what Tom Allen talked about. IU is miles behind in NIL is the genesis, or is not the genesis, the general takeaway of this. He said there are 8 players on roughly $150K in NIL deals. I'm going to assume, and I could be wrong here, but that is 150 a piece, which would be about 1.2 million. I don't think it is 8 players on $150,000 in total, which would be really bad. Either way, phrasing aside, he referenced Ryan Day of Ohio State talking about how it would take about $13 million in NIL money to keep his Buckeyes roster together. And he did not say that to scoff at it. He said that to more or less say, yeah, that makes sense. That seems about right. So there's a huge gap. Even if it's 8 players, $150K a piece, you're looking at a little over $1 million. $13 million is what it takes to compete with the big boys. IU is never going to touch $13 million in NIL money. Not in its current state. I don't know that it ever will. There's a lot of middle room between 1.2 and 13 million. And so he was basically saying if IU wants to compete at the level that fans and others want them to compete at, it's going to take a lot more investment. An NIL investment is fan investment. The school cannot put NIL money in here. There might be some back channel conversations. I'm not naive enough to think that part doesn't happen, but the school cannot put money into NIL. That has to be donors, fans. That has to be outside of the school. Now, at the same time, the school needs to put more money into the program. Dylan Powell, who was a starting offensive lineman on that 2020 team, was at IU for a number of years as a lineman, a valuable member of that team. He had this to say. He replied to the video on Twitter and said, quote, "It helps to have an athletic department that actually invests in the program to keep building the momentum off of several record-breaking years. It is asinine to think a program in the toughest division in college football can compete without that same firepower, budget, or facilities." There has been, I agree with everything Dylan Powell said. IU football, in some ways, I will say IU football is a little bit unlucky that their best season, not ever, but since the 60s, came in a year where fans could not be there because you bet your bottom dollar Memorial Stadium would have been sold out. They would have been raking in money, and they would have seen financial success from that season. So it's a bit of bad luck there. I'll acknowledge that. But Dylan's not wrong. This has been a problem before Tom Allen. It's shaping up to be a problem after Tom Allen. Because right now, IU football is kind of stuck in this cyclical nature. There was, I think, too much. Tom Allen does not have the ear of the fan right now, basically. If he would have said this in 2020, It'd be really interesting if he had came out, which obviously he couldn't, but suppose the circumstances were different. And this was on the heels or late in that 2020 season where we're winning a ton. Tom Allen is this awesome guy. We just beat Wisconsin. He goes on his radio show and has this rant. I think he would have gotten a lot more support. And that's just the nature of sports. If you're winning, people like you. If you're losing, you're not. I think there was a little bit too much in the reaction to this of people just kind of writing this off as like, yeah, he makes some points, but go win games, basically. Various ways of saying that. That's not how this is going to work, because the cyclical nature that IU is stuck in right now looks something like this. It starts with IU athletics is not spending money on the football program. Because they're not spending money on the football program, they can't hire good coaches. And that's been a problem. That's probably one of the ways that you see it most, is that when IU is looking to hire coordinators or things of that nature, Tom Allen has to take a pay cut to fire an offensive coordinator. Whether he had to, Tom Allen took a pay cut to fire an offensive coordinator. IU isn't spending on the program. Because of that, players aren't developing, whether it's through the coaches not being good enough, through the facilities not being good enough, through the budget not being good enough. The players aren't developing. Because the players aren't developing, they're struggling, and you're not winning games, which is the problem IU is currently in which they have, for the last 2 seasons, just been awful. 5 wins over the last 2 seasons. Because the players are struggling and don't win games, fans don't want to invest money into the team or time or anything like that. They would rather complain and not invest into it, which I'm not sitting here and I'm pointing fingers at myself. I've sat here and complained about the team as well. But because the fans aren't putting money or time into a losing team, they're not showing up to games, the stadium is not ever full, IU is not spending money on the program that's not supported by the fans. So it's just this big circle. Now there are branches off of that are problems as well, but that's just kind of this circle IU is stuck in. And the only way out of it is somebody has to take a leap of faith, whether it's the program taking a leap of faith and saying, Tom Allen got us there once. We have to start investing money to help him. Here's a bunch of money. Go hire a coaching staff. Go improve the facilities. Go with this bigger recruiting budget. Whatever it is, here's more money. Get us back to that level. Or it's the fans saying, you know what? They're right. We need to invest the money. We're getting lapped by all these other teams. Here's a bunch of NIL money. Let's start donating this money. And especially right now where it's being matched by a donor, let's get this NIL money in there so that we can start landing recruits, so that we can start being better on the field. And then hopefully IU will start spending money again. Until one of those things happens, IU's stuck in this circle. And Tom Allen, I've sat here and said that I wouldn't be surprised at this point if he's fired after this season, after his buyout goes down. But replacing Tom Allen isn't breaking that circle. It's going to be the same thing, because if IU's spending the money on his buyout, you think that they're also going to pony up for a big-time coach? They're going to try to find some mid-major coordinator or mid-major coach up-and-comer and try to strike gold there. They're not going to pony up for anyone big or anything like that, even though we're in this money-making Big Ten, and we're in the Big Ten East where we're always on TV. So something has to happen to break that wheel, to break the constant cycle that IU is in. And look, like I said, Tom Allen right now doesn't probably have enough cachet for this message to really land home like it should, but he's right. IU can't compete financially right now in football. They are miles behind everyone in terms of NIL, in terms of budget. And that's the problem with IU football right now, is that It's not going to get any better without somebody investing into this. We've seen the highs Indiana can reach, but these lows are going to continue to kind of be where we find ourselves, especially in this NIL era of football. Why would you come to Indiana and play and not be able to get really any NIL money when you can go to an SEC school or a different Big Ten school and get NIL money and play there? Indiana's falling way behind in this race. And so in some ways it was frustrating to hear Tom Allen. I mean, to some people, it might have been frustrating to hear Tom Allen kind of blaming something else. That doesn't mean he wasn't right. So it's an interesting position Indiana football's in right now. Not a very fun one, but somebody has to take that leap of faith to get us out of this whole